You think you're eating cheese? You're not. Most of the nacho dips sitting on store shelves right now aren't made from dairy. They're water, vegetable oil, and a handful of chemical thickeners designed to feel like cheese in your mouth. And the scary part? The label still says cheese dip right on the front. Today we're going through 12 of the most popular brands and splitting them into two groups. The ones that are actually fake, and the 4 that contain real ingredients worth eating. Avoid these 8 nacho cheese dip brands. People treat nacho dip like a protein snack. Number 1, Tostitos Salsa con Queso. Tostitos Salsa con Queso is probably at every party you've been to this year. It's the default nacho dip for most of America, and because the Tostitos brand is so familiar, people just trust it without ever flipping the jar around. Don't. The first ingredient is water. The second is tomatoes. Cheese doesn't show up until several lines down, and when it does, it's listed as pasteurized processed cheese product, which is itself a processed blend, not actual cheddar. Once it cools on your plate, watch it congeal. Real cheese remelts. This doesn't. Number 2, Great Value Nacho Cheese Dip. People call this one restaurant quality, and in blind taste tests, testers described it as velvety, smooth, and surprisingly good for the price. But think about what restaurant quality actually means here. It tastes like the cheese at a gas station counter or a movie theater concession stand. And those places use the same oil and emulsifier base because it's cheap, holds heat, and never separates in a warming tray. Testers also consistently noted it runs thin, and that thinness isn't a production flaw. There's just not enough dairy fat in the formula to give it any real body, so the emulsifiers carry all the weight. You're paying $2 and getting $2 worth of ingredients. Less cheese means less structure, and the sodium across a few servings adds up fast. Number 3, Rico's Gourmet Nacho Cheese Sauce. Gourmet sounds like it means something. It doesn't. The FDA puts 0 regulations on that word, so any company can slap it on any product, no matter what's inside the jar. Flip Rico's Gourmet Nacho Cheese Sauce around, and you'll find water first, then vegetable oil, then a long string of stabilizers and emulsifiers engineered to keep the oil and water from splitting apart. Cheese shows up well down the list, and it's a processed blend, not natural cheese. The formula is built for durability, not dairy content, which is exactly why you'll find it in school cafeterias and stadium concession stands where it sits in a warmer for hours without breaking. The gourmet version and the standard version share most of the same base. You're paying more for the label, not the ingredients. Number 4, Fritos Jalapeno Cheddar Cheese Dip. The spice hits fast and it lingers, and that's exactly why people keep buying this one. Good flavor is the most effective camouflage in processed food. But the heat doesn't come from actual jalapeno pieces. It comes from jalapeno pepper powder and natural flavors, engineered in a lab to deliver a consistent kick every single time. And the cheddar taste? That's cheese powder, which is dehydrated, processed cheese stripped of its fat structure, its protein matrix, and most of its calcium during processing. Think of it like instant coffee versus fresh ground. The flavor survives, but everything useful gets left behind. Fritos chips are corn, salt, and oil. Simple, clean. That reputation doesn't transfer to this jar. Number 5, Chef Mate Que Bueno, Nacho Cheese Sauce. The can itself tells you something. Canned cheese sauce wasn't developed for your kitchen. It was developed for school cafeterias and stadium concession stands, where it needs to sit in a steam tray for 4 hours without separating or growing a skin. That's the engineering goal. Nutrition never entered the conversation. So the formula runs on water, vegetable oil, and modified cornstarch, with a processed cheese blend added for flavor. Stability like that requires preservatives and pH adjusters you won't find in anything built around fresh dairy, and the ingredient list gets long fast because of it. Portions are easy to underestimate too, since it pours like a sauce. The exclamation point and the festive branding work hard to make this feel authentic. The ingredient list is cafeteria food dressed up for your grocery cart. Number 6, On the Border Queso Medium. Blind taste testers have compared this one to Alfredo sauce, and that's not a compliment they meant to give. Real Alfredo gets its creaminess from butter, cream, and Parmesan. On the border, queso gets there with water, vegetable oil, and emulsifiers. Manufacturers can dial up smoothness by adding more oil and more emulsifier, so the texture feels luxurious while the actual cheese content stays low. More oil means more calories and less cheese per spoonful. You're tasting fat and starch, not dairy. Number 7. Clover Valley Nacho Cheese Sauce. Clover Valley costs about $2, and the ingredient list matches that price exactly. Water first, then vegetable oil, then modified food starch, cheese powder, and a stabilizer blend to hold it all together. But here's what's actually interesting about this one. That formula is nearly identical to name brand dips that cost twice as much. The core recipe is commoditized, meaning any large food manufacturer can produce it at scale for almost nothing. And the price difference between a $2 store brand and a $4 name brand goes almost entirely toward the packaging and the logo on the front. So buying up to a pricier oil-based dip doesn't get you better ingredients. It gets you a better-looking jar. Across this whole tier of product, real cheese isn't the primary ingredient at any price point. Number 8. Funacho Nacho Cheese Flavored Dip. Funacho actually put the word flavored right in the name. Nacho Cheese Flavored Dip. Not cheese sauce, not queso, not dip. Flavored dip. That's technically the most honest label in this entire category. The FDA actually requires that word by law. Under federal labeling rules, when a product's characterizing flavor doesn't come primarily from the ingredient it's named after, the word flavored must appear on the label. So, nacho cheese flavored is a legal admission that the cheese taste comes from artificial and natural flavor compounds, not from a cheese base. The label told you. You just weren't looking for it. 4 that are actually cheese. Here's what real looks like. So now you know what fake looks like. Let's talk about what real actually is. Number 9. Rico's Gourmet Aged Cheddar Cheese Sauce. Same brand, same jar shape, almost identical label. But this is a completely different product, and that's exactly why it's on the good list. It also behaves differently under heat. Push it too hot and it can separate, because real dairy fat and protein don't hold together the same way vegetable oil does. That's not a defect. That's what actual cheese does. It costs more than the standard Rico's version, and now you know exactly why. Number 10. Good Foods Queso Style Dip. It's in the refrigerated section, not the chip aisle, and that alone tells you something. Products built on oil and preservatives don't need cold. Real dairy does. Flip this one over, and the ingredient list is short enough to read in about 5 seconds. Cheese, milk, peppers, spices. No vegetable oil, no modified food starch, no stabilizer blend doing the work that dairy should be doing. The texture comes from actual dairy fat, so it thickens when it cools and loosens when you heat it, because that's what real cheese does. It costs more than anything in the avoid section, and the container is smaller because you're not paying for water and starch inflating the volume. You're paying for food density. Finding it means skipping the chip aisle entirely and heading straight to the refrigerated dips. Number 11. Siete Milled Nacho Cashew Queso. No dairy, and it still makes the real ingredients list. That's because the standard here isn't contains cheese, it's built from actual food. Most dairy-free dips fail that test badly. They swap out milk for coconut oil and modified starch, which puts them right back in the same category as everything in the avoid section, just without the lactose. It won't taste like sharp cheddar. It's milder, slightly nutty, and less tangy. That's just what cashew queso is. The ingredient list reads like something you'd find in a grocery store bulk bin, and the nutrition label actually delivers something worth eating. Number 12. Trader Joe's Queso Cheese Dip. This one's in the chip aisle, priced right around $4 to $5, and the first ingredient is actually cheese. That sounds like a low bar, but you've seen how many brands don't clear it. It runs thick at room temperature, and some people open it and think something's wrong with it. Nothing's wrong. That's dairy fat doing what dairy fat does. Heat it up and it loosens, just like a block of cheddar would. It also clings to a chip instead of sliding off, because real dairy fat grips differently than vegetable oil does.